Hello. We are late. I know we're late. I'm sorry. We are late because I was stuck under a cat an hour ago, and the cat had to be removed from my lap. And obviously, I can't remove the cat from my lap because that's against the law. So I was stuck, and then everything just took longer. So I also can't see your chats yet because we are still getting that down. So feel free to chat away, but it might take a second before it's up. Aha, there we go. Yes, hello, I can see all your chats now. Hi! Thank you, folks, for beating me to my own live stream. I'm just saying, being stuck under a cat is pretty on brand as a valid reason to be late to the live stream. The other reason I was late to the live stream was that I picked a rather ambitious topic for today's live stream, which is a comparison of how different countries responded to the COVID crisis with stimulus packages and how that has worked out for them from kind of an economic perspective. That being said, I picked this ambitious topic because I'm interested in it and didn't do my homework. So I was doing my homework right before class, so to speak. So, yes, lovely. Great. Hello. Welcome, everyone. I'm also, like, wearing clothes. I was wearing a robe an hour ago. Like, we're doing great. We're doing great. Everything's very interesting today. How are folks? Do we have the map thing? Or is that not up? Okay, I won't ask. I won't ask where you're from to display things on a map because we don't have that working today. How is everybody doing? How is your Saturday going? I've had a rather funny Saturday today. I went on a run I run like at the track at the local park, mainly because I don't really like running, but I especially don't like being delayed by constant sidewalks being screwed up or not existing or cars. And I live like very much in the heart of the city, so there's not really anywhere to run other than this track at the school. The downside of the track, like the great thing about the track is you can see everything. There's no cars to deal with. What's also great about the track is it's super easy to social distance because it's like an 8-lane track. So you always just have to be like have one lane between you and the next person running, and you can like see very clearly ahead of there. And yeah, I don't really like running, but it is effective cardio. Anyway, I've been going and working out there for a while, and I went today and was supposed to run 5 miles today, and I was like on mile like 3.5 maybe, and this guy was like sitting on the side of the track, just like chilling in the shade, and I had my headphones in, and he like motioned to me, so I was like, oh, okay, I'll take my headphones out. And I was like, oh, what do you need? And he was like, are you a figure skater? And I was like, yes? Apparently, he is one of the people that normally is there training folks at 5 a.m. And he had seen me doing figure skating, off-ice training, like jumps and everything, and figured out that I was a figure skater because he was Tanya Harding's boxing coach for 3 years. So he's like an Olympic boxing coach, like done the Olympic boxing team and the Pan Am boxing team. And then for 3 years, Tanya Harding, when she had to quit figure skating because she was banned from the sport, did like celebrity boxing on TV. And apparently he was Tanya Harding's boxing coach. She's from Portland, where I live, if you didn't know that. Anyway, he was great. We had a long conversation in the middle of my run about structural racism and classism in sports and training during a pandemic. So it was delightful, and I am going to go work out with him and some of his boxing coaching clients in the park at like 5 a.m. sometime next week. So, Emily says, this is an extremely Portland story, it feels like. Yes, accurate. It's extremely Portland. A lot of people don't know that Tanya Harding's from Portland. She's actually from like the next suburb over, which is called Milwaukee. And She now lives in Washington, like just over the river, but she skates still, like, and coaches. She's not allowed to put kids in competition because she's banned from the sport, so she's banned from, like, official, but she still coaches, like, young kids and stuff. And she coaches at one of the rinks, like, nearby. Like, actually, technically the second closest rink to my house, so. Daniel says, there's a great You're Wrong About episode about her. Yeah, I mean, I do feel like the movie that Tonya Harding, that they did, the, like, dramatized movie of Tonya, like, I, Tonya, that came out a couple years ago, I do feel like it did a better job of kind of showing her side of the story, but it was obviously biased and dramatized and, like, you know, it's got a lot. Anyway, I met the guy who there was an actor who played him as Tanya's boxing coach in the movie today. It was just very funny. So, Denise says Milwaukee with an I. Yes, it's spelled different than the other Milwaukee. So, Emily says my old improv coach played her lawyer in that movie. That, Emily, is a very LA story. Yes. Oh. Brianna says, all I have done all day is play video games and y'all out here running. To be fair, so the other disappointing thing about the 5-mile run was that I was supposed to run 5 miles, and I did run 5 miles. However, because I stopped to have a 20-minute chat at 3.5 miles, my stats for, like, my pace are awful. They're like, good, decent pace, and then it's like 23 minutes a mile for the 3rd mile, so yeah, I was a little sad about that. But I was supposed to be in Atlanta next week. Yeah, I was supposed to be in, some foreign country right now. No, I was supposed to be in Sun Valley, Idaho right now, doing figure skating training camp. So, mildly bitter about that. Oh, that's an Atlanta story, not a LA story, I see. Denise has finally figured out how to open a coconut. So it's a very good day. I feel like opening a coconut is a very, like, it's an important skill, but it's one of those things, until you learn it, you don't learn it. I discovered that different coconuts are opened different ways when I lived in India. Probably one of the coolest things I learned how to do when I was in India, was that I got a training from a climber there on how to climb coconut trees, which is a particular skill, and people are like, that's all they do. They run businesses to climb coconut trees for people's coconut trees in their front yards. So that was very satisfying. Latitude has tater tots, and for once, I am the one that is jealous on this live stream of the food that other people have. That sounds great. Can we have tater tots for dinner? I got a thumbs up. I don't think we actually have tater tots, so I don't think we're willing to go out and get them. I also, this is just random Lillian stories. You can tell I'm procrastinating on the actual topic because the actual topic is so big and I didn't finish all my slides for it. So, yesterday I went to Trader Joe's for the first time in 6 months. It was my first time in a grocery store in 6 months. And because I am immunosuppressed, and there was kind of the belief that maybe I should avoid the grocery stores. So Erin's been going to the grocery store. I've been staying home. I think it was the right call, but I've slowly started, like, one, as businesses get, like, better at restrictions, and as I just kind of suffer fatigue from not feeling like an independent human, I've been slowly, like, increasing the number of stores I'm willing to go to. Like, masks are required indoors here, so I've, like, gone inside open air coffee shops with masks now, and I've gone inside Rite Aid because it's a drugstore, so I feel like of all of the places that, with a pharmacy, I feel like they would have good protections, and also there's never anyone in that store, even pre-pandemic, unfortunately, so I haven't actually seen anyone other than the cashiers, and they have plexiglass and everything. finally, I reached the point where I was very tired of not feeling like an independent human and not being able to go to the grocery store. And I think Aaron was very tired of the fact that I am bitter at Aaron when we don't have snacks in the house, despite the fact that it's not in any way Aaron's fault we don't have snacks in the house. I will not ask for them because I don't want to have them around. And then I can't go to the grocery store by myself. So then I'm just bitter that I don't have any in the house, even though it was like an intentional choice on my part. So after some discussion, we kind of decided the grocery store that that Aaron had seen the most precautions taken at, that was like taking it the most seriously, was Trader Joe's. And we luckily live in a part of town where like we have a bunch of grocery stores within walking distance. So we have like a lot of ability to choose. We live in a grocery rich area. And it was very fun to go to Trader Joe's. I only walked out with 3 snacks that I didn't intend to walk in with. And one of them was cauliflower gnocchi, which I'm pretty excited about. Yes, so it was very exciting to go to the grocery store. It wasn't as bad. I thought that I was going to go bananas inside of, no pun intended, inside of Trader Joe's, because I was like, they have a lot of snacks and I'm hungry and I haven't been in there in 6 months. I will say they were taking everything extremely seriously, and it seems like that is not the case in some other grocery stores. The Camille asked how long was the line at Trader Joe's when you went. So we're very lucky that we can see the line from Trader Joe's from our apartment window. You can very easily figure out where we live now. There are multiple Trader Joe's in Portland, so you'll at least be able to narrow it down to a couple. But we can see the Trader Joe's from our house. So it has been a bunch of times like wrapped all the way around a city block. Our city blocks are a third the size of normal city blocks, though. So, but that's, obviously spaced out 6 feet. So that's not actually that long of a line. I only had to wait like, I think 4 minutes. And at least one of those minutes was the Trader Joe's employee at the line very excitedly telling me about all of the new COVID restrictions after I told him I hadn't been there in 6 months. Obviously Trader Joe's are probably the most pathologically friendly grocery employees. And I say this as a former Midwestern grocery clerk myself. But they were like so excited to just tell me all the things that they were doing for COVID. But I actually felt very safe. There was very few people in the store because they were like limiting people in the store. Definitely never came within 6 feet of anyone. All of the employees were wearing face masks or face shields. They had like plexiglass up at all of the checkout counters, and they had you step back from the checkout counters while you, while they were bagging, so that you were 6 feet away, even through the plexiglass from the bagger. And they like wipe down all the carts, like go to like a sanitization station. And they, they were like, you maintain 6 feet from everyone, including employees, while you're in the store. And they like converted some of the tighter aisles to one way. I don't think that the way they laid them out was maybe the best, but they did make it so they're one way so that like you wouldn't get cross traffic in the really small ones. I brought like, I thought, I was prepared for a longer wait, but it was super fast. It was like 3 to 4 minutes, I would say. And I had, my new noise canceling headphones and like was just chilling in the line. But, I honestly, it was fine. I felt very safe. Like, honestly, I feel like going to the outdoor park where kids are playing soccer on a Saturday morning and no one is wearing masks and like running in the track with a mask on felt less safe than Trader Joe's, because Trader Joe's, I could tell, was like prioritizing employees and they had a plan in place, and it's kind of just chaos at the outdoor park. So, yeah. Emily says noise canceling headphones outside of the house are a real pro move. Well, so a thing I've learned now that I've had noise canceling headphones for a grand total of 4 days is that we live in the noisiest neighborhood ever. I think the only noisier neighborhood I've lived in was the place I stayed at in London, and that was largely because I could never shut the window because it was like August and heat and I like didn't have a fan in my room. And also I lived right next to a mosque, so everybody was there for prayers before the sun got up. And I also, like anywhere in central London, I lived like 20, I guess it would probably 20 meters or so from a DLR line. So like all night long there was DLR going by. Anyway, that was loud, but I have now realized how loud my neighborhood is. Like there's constantly, like there was a drag race, as I mentioned, I think last week down our street, that resulted in like a massive crash where they just like both U-turned and ran away. There's always motorcycles. There's just constant noise. Anyway, so walking to Trader Joe's, I've been enjoying it, but it does make me feel weird crossing the street. So I've been like taking them off. I got the new Sonys. I actually took the box like out of this before the live stream because I didn't want I didn't want to like spoil it for you all. Emily says, you never have to hear sounds you don't want to again. Yeah, I felt encouraged by the fact that I'm training someone new at work. So we've been on calls for like, 8 hours a day. And they were like, your neighborhood is bananas. Like I can hear everything. He's like, people are shouting and everything. So I'll show you what I got. I'll show you the box. So these
hashtag not sponsored.
Hashtag incredibly not sponsored. Although I'll take them if you want. They are not. So here's my complaint about them. So one, I was nervous about getting noise canceling headphones in the first place because I do audio editing, and for audio monitoring, you don't want noise canceling because you don't want extra like ambient sound being reversed in while you're listening. So it was important to me, either I'm getting noise canceling headphones that I'm just not planning on using them for, like I'm using them only for work. I do fly a lot, and I've only had noise canceling headphones when I'm like in extremely fancy first class and they like give them to you. Real thing that happens on Korean Airlines. They just like give you Bose Quiet Comfort 35s like while you're on the plane. And in normal times, I do fly a lot, but I've always been kind of skeptical. Like, I don't really want to bring 2 pairs of headphones when I'm traveling, and if I have to do audio editing, do I really want to have noise canceling for the flight, but then have to have other ones? So I got the ones that came out this week, the new Sonys 1000 XM4s, and they are incredible. Everybody, the reviews of them, like if you Google reviews of them, everyone that reviews headphones says they are the best ever, like the best noise canceling headphones that have ever existed. So yeah, I gotta say they're really great. I was also, the other thing I was concerned about is Aaron has the 35-2s, and one of the things I don't like about them, they're very comfortable in your head, but they give me that ear sucky feeling that some noise canceling headphones, where you kind of feel like your eardrums being sucked out of your ears. And these do not give me the ear sucky feeling. I will say they are significantly better. We've compared them to the 35-2s, and they're like not even in the same field as far as active noise canceling headphones. It's weird to take them off and have all the sound rush back in. The main reason that I went for these was because they have like the two connections. Because these came out this week, every other top of the line noise canceling headphones tanked in price this week. So if you've been considering getting noise canceling headphones and having them be able to connect to 2 Bluetooth devices, and just easily do the handoff, if that's not important to you, go look for other noise canceling headphones. The previous version of these, which are almost identical except for the double connection, they went down almost like over $100 in price everywhere. And then the Bose headphones, the 700s, which are like beyond Aaron's headphones, they're not in the same, they're considered kind of like the next step, even though they still have both of them out at the same time. The 700s were the other one I was considering, and literally the only reason to get the Bose 700s, as far as I could tell, would be that they have way better call audio quality. the call audio quality is fine on these, but like if you're someone that, I don't know, if you're going to be like recording podcasts from your headphone mic, I don't know. You can listen to side-by-side comparisons on YouTube. Bose has always been optimized for like business people, like rich business people who are on calls a lot. That's always been their target audience. And so they had them better anyway. I love how this is not a tech review channel, but whatever, I'll take it. The other thing I don't like about them is they're not pretty colors. So I got the matte gray, which I like okay, but like these are my JBLs, which are not noise canceling, and like obviously they're cute colors and stuff. Aesthetics are important to me. I just like my tech to be pretty. I get like cute skins for my cameras and stuff, but I have a plan. I am going to cover them in washi tape. So Latitude says, do they not come in pink? They do not. They only come in black and then this like matte silver color. They're in the other room. Otherwise I would like show them off to you. I actually liked better how they looked. I thought it would be like that tech kind of shiny, cheap gray, you know, that like all computer headsets were in the early 2000s, but they're like a nice matte color. But I am gonna, they're so expensive. I don't want to like spray paint them or anything, but they're kind of like a matte finish and they have this nice velvety touch, but they have control on the ear. So you can put your hand over it if you want to like talk to people. I literally can't hear myself talk when I put them on, and they're not even on right now. But you can do like, you can kind of mouse over the ear with your finger and like pause or up the music, or if you need to like talk to a barista or like a gate agent, you can just put your hand over it without taking them off. They also pause your music when you put them down on your neck, which is pretty cool. So they're really comfortable. I was super worried about it. Like I was worried about the ear sucking feeling. I really didn't want to spend this much money. I kind of got a deal. I got the Amazon Prime business card because I had no annual fee, and they gave me an $125 Amazon gift card, and then I had another $100 Amazon gift card from a referral to a payroll provider software. And so I took the price down, but they are really expensive. I also just did a contract where I got paid a lot for work, and they are a business expense for me, so I don't know. They also come with a great case. Like the case is flat, so it fits in your bag. So I'm really liking that. And it also has like dividey pockets, and an airplane adapter in the dividey pocket, which means I actually won't lose it. Unlike when you give me an airplane adapter, or I keep one from an airplane and then I can never find it again and I don't bring it with me when I travel. It just like lives in the case. So anyway, I've really liked it. I will say like this case thing, not that I'm like going anywhere right now, but it's just so much. Look at my JBLs, which are smaller headphones. This is the case for them. Look how giant it is and awkward. And then this is like, it's just so smooth. Anyway. Yeah, welcome to Tech Reviews with Lillian. Tech and donut reviews. Who cares about the economy? But I'm going to cover them in washi tape. That's my plan. I have this pink holographic washi tape that I think is going to cover those. So I think that's the plan, because I didn't really feel comfortable doing anything totally permanent to them in case I was going to return them. Currently, I don't feel like I'm going to return them, but, you know, who knows what's going to happen. They're pretty great, though. I think it was a good work-from-home investment now that I'm working from home for the foreseeable future, because ironically, my home office is way louder than my office, which is located downtown. So, yeah. Latitude says, I have pink urban ears that I use for all-day video conferencing, and they match my glasses. Yeah, that's the thing, is those JBLs match my glasses, which I'm not wearing right now, but they're the exact same color as my glasses, and a suit jacket that I have, so if I want to look really coordinated on a conference call, yes, it's great. The Bose let you, the quiet comforts, for $50, you can, like, design your own colors and everything on them. But the 700s didn't have that option, and I definitely, if I was going to go for the bows, I was going to get the 700s. But they did have prettier colors. So that was the biggest downside to me, frankly. I was like, call quality is good enough, I'll stick with it, but also I was considering just not buying them because no one needs noise canceling headphones that are this expensive. Like, it's not a need. But I think it was a worthwhile investment, and I've only had them for 4 days, so I feel like if I'm already feeling pretty good about the choice, then... Welcome to Headphone Reviews with Lillian. Hey, do we want to talk about the donut? So, today's donut is actually a fritter, which is, from what I understand about donuts, just means when a donut has fruit in it, it's a fritter, like real fruit, and it is a custard apple fritter. So it has, like, custard inside. I'm very excited about it. And my tea is the forthcoming Oh My Dollar non-caffeinated mocktail tea. It's very pretty. It is the pina colada flavor for the mocktail tea, and it's delicious, and it's non-caffeinated, unlike the bourbon tea. Dean says, it just looks like a glazed croissant. Yeah, I mean, but it doesn't... It's really not the same as a croissant. It's because croissants have, like, thin layers with butter in between, and this is a fritter, so it's fruit, dough, and then some glaze, and then fried, and then some glaze over the top. So, Denise says, that tea is beautiful. Yeah, it's not still brewing, but it's all, like, fruits, because it's an herbal tea, so it's actually, like, the actual tea itself is really beautiful. And it smells great. I wish I could. Can you smell it? Yep. Yeah, it's a fried dumpling full of fruit. That is an accurate description of a fritter. All cuisines have a dumpling, right? Weren't we trying to figure that out? So. Dean says, I think we'd call that a Danish. I mean, what I'm going to also say is, British baking is its own special thing. So, but I've come around to British baking from Bake Off. Emily, what if we made biscuits good? I love biscuits, but the only way to make biscuits good is gravy or frying them and adding fruit. Those are the two options. Do we want to actually talk about economics, or should we just have a tech review and updates on what happened in Lily's life this week live stream? Emily says, I also love biscuits, but yeah, you gotta add some fat. Oh yeah, I forgot you're from the South originally. The thing about biscuits that I think out here, like out on the West Coast, that people fundamentally don't understand about biscuits is that, like, they are simply a vehicle for the gravy. I think people out here, they make them very fluffy, and they try to make them like a thing in and of themselves and then just have stuff on top of it. And they don't realize that they're actually just like a vehicle to eat gravy. So Emily says, Portland is not good at biscuits except for Screen Door. Sorry. See, I used to live 2 blocks from Screen Door, and I'm just extremely bitter at them because people will wait in line at Screen Door for several hours when there are amazing brunch places all like within a block or two of all of the places. Latitude, Screen Door is or was. I'm not actually sure if Screen Door is gone now. I mean, at this point, I think all Portland restaurants are on a track to be gone. But Screen Door is like a southern-ish style brunch place. We're very serious about brunch in Portland. But Screen Door is like, it's like the Voodoo Donuts of brunch in Portland. It's like overhyped, filled with tourists, and people view waiting in the line for it as an activity in and of itself. So, Christine does not want to get too depressed learning how other countries are taking good care of their citizens, but I hope seeing you eating a donut and maybe catch the kitten cam. What I will say, Christine, and part of the reason that this was interesting to me is that a lot of countries took similar approaches to one another in the way that they did it, but like in the way they supported citizens with stimulus packages post-COVID. Almost every country that had any kind of ability passed some sort of stimulus package. But what I will say is not all of them had the intended effect. And it largely looks like the size of package relative to GDP had far less to do with economic recovery than the actual virus. So if that makes sense, like the US actually, the percentage of US GDP that went towards our stimulus package, the CARES Act, was quite similar to a lot of countries, and even quite a bit higher. We also had a great deal more of it that was just straight up fiscal spending rather than deferrals or something like that, like tax deferrals. It appears that there are two factors that go into whether or not these stimulus packages had significant effects on how the economy did. The two things were, how did the virus do? Notably, how early did lockdown occur, and did that curb the virus? And two, how good, well, actually three things. Two, what the economy is based in. So Canada, for example, did really poorly, despite the fact that they do not have a mostly service and consumer spending based economy, because oil prices tanked at the same time. Some of oil prices tanked because of COVID. Oil prices also were kind of on a path to tank for other reasons. And like the futures had already kind of expired before we even really saw the huge economic fallout from COVID like hit Canada. But Canada's economy took a hit largely because of the amount of jobs and industry that is tied to oil in Canada. So that is actually very interesting. The US and the UK both had huge outsized effects, despite the fact that the way they responded was slightly different as far as like how they got aid, how they chose to do aid. But they had two things that are similar. They're both service and consumer spending focused economies. Consumer spending drives about 70% of the US economy, and consumers get scared when jobs are lost, and we are less likely to spend it. And the UK economy is very services and consumer based as well. And the other reason that we are similar is that lockdown started late in both the UK and the US compared to other countries. It looks like countries that fared the best, it had less to do with how they helped citizens and had more to do with how early they implemented lockdown. So I'm also going to say that this is like this is not an actual academic study. I am telling you from like my review of the data and what we are seeing right now. The UK economy is actually, it's the largest recession of any economy in modern history that they're going through right now. They actually had twice the impact on GDP than the US did. Their last quarter, they fell by over 25%, the UK economy. And they had a very strict lockdown. They structured the programs quite similar to the US. So they did a couple things. Actually, we have a slide on the UK economy, if we can put it up. So we have a slide on what the UK did. Also, oh, I like that we have this on the screen with the cat. Okay, so the UK economy, what they did is they expanded access to universal credit, which is kind of their version of, it's like welfare and unemployment wrapped up in one. And they expanded access to it for small business owners and independent contractors who previously would not qualify. It's very similar to what the US did. However, universal credit is not really a livable amount. It's only livable if you also are getting housing support. The UK's welfare essentially did welfare reform under the Tories in the 80s and 90s, similar to how the US did it. in the 90s under Clinton. And that welfare reform did the exact same thing the US did, which is that they disassembled the existing welfare kind of supplemental support programs that just paid cash to people, and they disassembled it into a bunch of different kinds of support. So they have housing support, they have universal credit, and all of that kind of disassembly that they did and that the US did means that, like, you now have to qualify for each of these programs individually. Housing, similar to the US, is incredibly hard to get into, very long lists, and it's also means tested, so you can get kicked out if you start earning too much money. And universal credit, as Dean can confirm, is really not enough to live on, versus unemployment here in the US. With the extra $600 a week that they added, for most people, especially people on the lower income side of the spectrum, they were now making more than they were making before at their jobs. If you made minimum wage before, if you were getting an extra $600 a week, in most states, you were actually now making more than you were on minimum wage on unemployment. The other things that they did is they did something similar to the US, which is we did this thing called payroll protection loans. Of course, because it is America, we structured them as loans, but they were structured as fully forgivable loans. And these loans essentially said, hire back your workers and we will give you money equal to 2.5 months of your full-time payroll to pay your workers and also to pay some other expenses. One of the issues with the way that the payroll protection loans were structured was initially you didn't have very much time to use them. There was a long wait list, although eventually almost everybody who wanted to get it did get into the program. And the amount in the payroll protection loans was really small for businesses that don't have a lot of other workers hired on. So for independent contractors that just are supporting themselves or pay themselves a low salary, it was almost not worth the stretch of doing it. And then the other thing was that, like, it wasn't actually helpful in the beginning for businesses that were forced to shut under COVID. Because if you were a restaurant who was forced to shut down by the state, so you laid off or furloughed your workers, you could rehire them, but you didn't actually have work for them to do. And you needed more help paying your rent than you did need to pay your workers. That being said, you needed to hire them back in order to get forgiveness of the loan, despite the fact that your workers, if you had laid them off, qualified for this unemployment where they were likely making more on unemployment. One other huge difference was that, one, the United States, the best way to describe it is that we're a bunch of states standing in a trench coat on top of each other trying to pretend to be a country. We aren't actually a single country in the way that we apply almost any fiscal stimulus, and that is true of how we apply unemployment assistance. That is true on how we do regulations around healthcare. That is how we deploy Medicaid. All of those things are essentially, like, incredibly frustrating, because it is very hard to pass something at the federal level and have it have the intended consequences as far as the states. And every state in the US is required to have a balanced budget. If they don't have a balanced budget, they actually have to go bankrupt. They don't have the ability to print money like the federal government does. So they're reliant on Congress to pass bills with that where they can print money so they can do fiscal stimulus and then pass it on to the states. So it is, it's just very, it was a lot harder for us to implement. Unemployment systems, as you know, a lot of states never successfully got the money to independent contractors. That was the same thing that the UK did theoretically. The problem was that universal credit is not based on your, like, previous earnings. And so you ran into, like, a great example is, like, cabbies. So you've got these black cab drivers in London that suddenly can't work, literally banned from working. They are their own independent businesses, but they still need to pay for their car. They still need to pay for all of these business expenses, not to mention support their families. And the alternative was universal credit, which is like, it's not even enough to pay rent outside Greater London, like let alone support a family or pay for your car and your licensing fees and all of those things. So that was the big struggle with the UK, is that it wasn't enough money, and the money was really hard to access if you were an independent contractor. They were very different than what a lot of other countries did, which is that they essentially opened up kind of a lot of the programs, like how we did payroll protection here. They opened that up to small business owners and independent contractors. They really didn't do the same thing. So they did a really poor job of supporting independent contractors. And guess what? The service industry under the new world of the gig economy consists of a ton of independent contractors and one-person businesses. So that's kind of one of the places where they differed. So they also did this thing, which was I've talked about in previous live streams, which was a scheme to keep workers on. As an American, I absolutely love that anytime there's a program, they call it a scheme in the UK, because scheme means something like nefarious in the US. But in the UK, it just means a program. But I love the idea that, like, the government is always scheming in the UK. Anyway, they had a scheme that would pay essentially like up to 80% of workers that were kept on. And the big worry was that that program expired and they kind of just had a glut of people that were suddenly unemployed. And there was a lot of people that were kind of being kept on with, like, everybody knew the bottom was going to fall out from under all of that. So, that was one of the big problems, but that support did get to workers a lot more easily than the way that the US structured it, which was this payroll protection loan. And that is largely because, guess what? The UK, despite the fact that they have actual different countries in them, functions more cohesively in a national system than the United States does, that doesn't actually have other countries. Well, we do have territories. It's complicated. Statehood for Puerto Rico. So that is like one of the key reasons that the United Kingdom was able to get money to people faster, is because they already have a lot of nationalized services. NHS is a great example. And they also are like better at getting money to and from people on a national level. So yes, they were better at that. That seems to be a consistent theme about how it affected individual people. Across countries that already pay their citizens and are able to get money to citizens quickly and have been doing it as a matter of practice, were able to respond a lot more quickly and a lot more effectively than countries like the United States, where we actually don't do that. So a great example is Canada. And we actually have a slide for Canada. Oh, although I do want to say one thing about the UK, which is just very funny. It's called Eat Out to Help Out, which is because they have such a service sector-based economy. When lockdown lifted, the government is subsidizing half of your meal when you eat at restaurants. I think only in London, like Greater London area, but they are subsidizing half of your meals Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, I believe, up to £10, which is like around 13. I think it's $13 US today. Because I was checking the exchange rate this morning for some reason. Anyway, it's just hilarious. It's trying to meant to support restaurants that have to be serving at reduced capacity and stuff. Oh, Dean says it is nationwide. So apparently it's nationwide. Anyway, I just love that it's called Eat Out to Help Out, and they're just literally subsidizing half your meal to make you go out to eat. They also did some like tax deferrals and holidays and stuff like that. In the UK, most countries have some sort of tax holiday or deferral as part of their overall stimulus package. So Canada, let's put this up on the screen really quick. So Canada did a bunch of different things, but one of the really big key ones, and the one that is constantly coming up, is that they did direct stimulus payments on a monthly basis to Canadians who were quarantined or laid off workers. $2,000 Canadian, which, depending on the exchange rate, roughly equals around 1,800 to 1,700 US. Guess what, though? It got out to everybody almost immediately. And this applied to people that were high risk and couldn't go into work, people that were taking care of sick family members, their kids were out of school, or they were laid off workers. And the reason that this worked so well is that Canada already pays citizens on a monthly basis. Canada has this thing called the child tax credit, which the first time I learned about it from my Canadian ex, I was like, what do you mean the government pays you if you have kids and you're low income directly every month? Weird concept for me. But they literally directly already, it varies by how many kids you have and your income, but they actually just directly make deposits in accounts from the government through the child tax credit program in Canada. And because of that, they already had people's bank accounts. They already knew how to get people money. They also are a great example of a country that functions mostly as a country. Montreal is a little bit of an, Quebec generally is like a little bit of a different circumstance as far as like they have some social programs and stuff like that that just happen in Quebec. But across the board, Canada is functionally a lot more of a unified country than the United States, as far as both government and programs. And so they were a lot more able to do that. They also expanded unemployment benefits for folks similar to most countries did, like both who qualified for it and how long you could get it for. So Canada has bounced back significantly better. Here are the key reasons why. Less of a services-based economy than the United States or the United Kingdom. 2, less cases. That's it. It really seems to be one of the key elements. Paying people directly, yes, great. Having, a country with paid parental leave and national health care, I'm sure didn't hurt. But that is, and, citizens that maybe are more willing to listen to the government when they say things like don't go leave your house. But Canada, across the board, it seems like one of the main reasons their economy bounced back better than the United States was less because of the direct stimulus payments, although cause and effect, who knows? I'm sure people will be studying it for the next several decades in economics. Did appear to be more a factor of the fact that like a lot of kids are going back to school and stuff like that in Canada. So lockdown is much more functionally done there. So, oh yes, people like I cannot take credit for a bunch of states stacked on top of each other. I think I originally read that on Tumblr like 5 years ago, and I was like, every time I need to explain to foreigners who don't understand why healthcare is so broken in the US or like why we can't like accomplish certain things, I can just say that. The other thing I say, I always, when I'm traveling, people are like, why do Americans not want socialism? Like, what do you have against socialism? Because believe it or not, it's if you've been raised in America, haven't spent a lot of time outside of America, you may not realize that socialism is not so deeply hated in other countries as like a concept. And I end up, the way I explain it to folks, this is like, imagine this is like mainly like hostel bars where I'm having this conversation, but people will be like, why do Americans not want socialism? Like, why are you like afraid of socialist healthcare? Like, what is it? I'd be like, here's the thing. It's like a sports team that you're raised to hate. Like, you don't know why you don't like that team, but you've always been trained that like your team is better and that team is the bad team. And that's how we're trained to think about socialism, especially folks that came up like during the like Cold War and right after the Cold War, like me, like my generation, which I think is far more open to socialism than the previous generations, but folks that like really came up during the Cold War. Like that's we were trained out of that. So, would we like to see some other countries, or how are we feeling? Are we feeling depressed about America? Would you like some uplifting American facts? I have to think of some. Do we need a donut? To what? Oh, interesting. I guess it's donut time. Let's eat a donut. All right. This is the apple custard donut. Really get it in there so everybody can see it. It's got like in the middle. Yeah. All right. Well, that is an overwhelming vote for donut. This is good. I haven't gotten to an apple piece yet. These are local apples, too. They're from within, like, 20 miles or something. Mmm. Yep. Very crunchy. Very good. Definitely a Danish, yeah. I mean, I also find it very confusing that you call everything puddings. Like, things that aren't puddings are puddings in your country, so. Claire says, you may not have noticed, but every time you give us an opportunity to vote for donut, we always vote for donut. Yes, I am familiar. I figured that out. I actually still keep asking because I feel like maybe there's one day I'm going to be so riveting and you're all going to be so into the economic topic, you want to push off the donut. It's very good. I have no idea what the vegan custard is in it. Custard's just like cream-like. I don't think it's very hard to make vegan. Emily, I bet you're correct. I bet we're going to discover that American and UK definitions of Danish are different. I think a Danish is also a pudding. Everything sweet is a pudding. Very weird to me as an American. Joe, I feel like Australians will... You're gonna do whatever the UK calls things, and then you're just gonna shorten it. Is there a short word in Australian English for pastry or Danish? Do you call them a niche or something? There's always a short name or an abbreviation. This is delicious. I don't really have any review to say except this is great. It's kind of too big. Unless you have one for pudding, then it's a pudding. What does pudding just mean dessert? Is that what it means? Like it's like anything you eat after a meal that's sweet? You know what we can do? If there isn't a short name for Danish, we can probably make it up. And Jeff and Joe can slowly spread it to opposite sides of Australia. And I'm sure it'll catch on because it's a short version of something. This is very good. You can see the apple piece. Oh, a Dano. Yeah, I guess you gotta end it with it's gotta end with a vowel. That's what I've learned about the Australian versions of things. The only thing you don't shorten, as far as I can tell, is names for coffee drinks. What? It depends on class. Everything in the UK depends on class, is the thing I've learned. So posh people have dessert, and other folks have pudding. So do you think Americans just call it dessert for everyone because we were like democratizing, avoiding the classism of the UK? This is great. I'm going to start some sort of war between the Americans and the one Brit in the comments. Egalitarian pudding equals dessert. It's just that Americans have such delusions of grandeur that we think we're all posh. So that's why we all have dessert. That fritter was great. I made pretty short work of that. I don't know what else to tell you. That was delicious. Should we do more countries now, or should we just continue to talk about pudding? Americans call their main course entree. See, here you go. Only posh people call their main course entree here in the US. Not that we call them posh, we call them fancy people. But fancy people would call it an entree. Anytime something in America is a French word, it means that it's meant to sound fancy. We don't ever use French words we don't ever use French words in English. I mean, obviously we strip all the accents out of them because why would we keep the accents in? Those are oppressive. But we strip the accents out, and then we use French words, and we only use them to refer to things fancy. You can actually refer to anything in French and it sounds fancier in America. It's like a universal rule. Entree is the bit before the mains. I think we just call it dinner. I don't think there's like a... I had soup for dinner. Soup is not my entree. Yeah, exactly. It's just for nice restaurants. We have normal restaurants that have entree, then main, then dessert. Yeah, no, that's not... No, only fancy restaurants. Like, if I went to a kind of restaurant I would go to, would never be a fancy restaurant. If I went to a restaurant and they said entrees, I would be confused, or I would think they were being, like, fake fancy. Learning French and basically all of our words are French. That's true. Like, a lot of them are. But also, all of those examples that you gave, pizza, passport, and hotel, those are also common in other languages. Those are actually German words as well. So, actually, the German word for passport is... Oh, it's not passe, it's Reisepasse. Literally travel pass, but trip pass. What about an after dinner mint? I mean, do you know anyone except a fancy restaurant that has an after dinner mint latitude? Joe is trying to steer us back to economics and away from whatever this discussion is. Yeah, I'm so not a linguist, so I should stay out. I did learn French in school for like 8 years, and then I speak decent German, and I learned German in my 20s, and when I learned German, I was like, why did I not learn this first? I thought French, everybody said that French was like so related to English, and German, English is actually a Germanic language, and I had no idea that German would be so easy coming from English, comparatively. So. Oh, I like that Art of the Budget says nothing the entire chat until we claim that pizza is a French word. I think it's an Italian word originally. But I think it's Das Pizza. I think it's neutral in German, which implies that it probably came from a foreign language. So. Okay, let's talk about the German recovery. Let's put Germany up on the screen. So, Germany has recovered quite a bit more. And you may notice that kind of has a lot to do with the fact there's two things going on here. One, Germany has been getting a lot of the service sector economy from London for the past year, because of Brexit. So companies that previously had their EU headquarters in London, in the financial services sector mainly, have now moved. A lot of them have moved to Germany, because Germany is kind of the other financial hub. And so quite a lot of them have moved their headquarters there. And so they've already been kind of having a Brexit of the city in London, which is the financial district in London, has been moving into Germany. So, I like that nobody knows the origins of pizza. Okay. So, Germany also has the largest economy in the EU, but they are extremely scared of inflation because they suffered hyperinflation after World War I because they had to pay back every other country for all the bad things they did during World War I, and because of that, they ended up suffering massive hyperinflation during the Weimar Republic. And because of that, they are super scared of inflation. They also share a currency with the rest of the EU and with the rest of the EMU. So it is important to understand that while Germany has a lot of negotiating power, they can't actually do any fiscal stimulus that involves printing money without the consent of the EMU. And the EU passed its direct relief packages a lot later than other countries. The EU had, I don't know, maybe something else going on called Brexit that they were very busy dealing with before coronavirus. And so every country in the EU and in the EMU did its own kind of version of that. But Germany does not have the same ability as the United States to just print money. And because of that, you see a lot more of their direct relief was not direct fiscal stimulus. The United States actually had the largest percentage of the overall stimulus package just being direct printing money stimulus, versus tax holidays, deferrals, things like that. So one of the things that they could do was funds to buy shares in affected businesses. So they actually did something called an economic stabilization fund, or the German name for it, which I could probably make up right now because I'm sure it's just a German translation of all of those. It's probably Wirtschaft, Funde. I don't know how to say stabilization in German. I should know that. You'd think, having taken economics classes in Germany, I would know that word. Okay, so they made an economic stabilization fund. And it was very different than like the payroll protection loans here, which was essentially direct fiscal stimulus. They were actually buying shares in company. And they went particularly for companies that were significantly affected by COVID-19. So generally across the board, they had to have lost like 50% of their net revenue, although it was more complex requirements to that because Germany and bureaucracy. They gave direct grants to independent contractors and one-person businesses up to 8,000 euros, which is about $10,000. These were one-time grants, so they didn't do these like monthly stimulus payments, but they were relatively easy to apply for. I actually know quite a few people who got them, and they also didn't like really require you to do a lot of proving in a very un-German way. There wasn't actually a lot of bureaucracy around applying for those, so they gave a direct payment. And they also expanded welfare, which a lot of people did. One of the key things that they did, though, was that they removed means testing for welfare. So a lot of countries, if you're going to get social assistance, cash payments, things like that, they have means testing. In the United States, we have them for most programs, which essentially means like they want you to exhaust your own savings before you can get on welfare. It's not universally true for all programs in the US because, you know, similar to the UK, we've divided it up in a bunch of pieces. But they removed means testing, which meant that a lot of workers that maybe owned houses or, you know, had large assets or bank accounts, pensions, what have you, were still able to qualify for it. They also did, which is common in every country's package as far as I've seen, tax cancellation and deferral, and they did it for both individuals and corporate. That actually made up the largest portion of the assistance that they did. So they also revised down their package. Originally, it looked like it was 13.5% of GDP. And then the second revisal, it's actually only 8.5% of GDP. And that was largely because less people took advantage of the welfare than they thought. And their initial calculations for the corporate and individual holiday deferrals turned out to be very different than what ended up happening in reality. So Germany has, their economy has improved quite a lot from where they were at. They, I believe, actually, do you have that graph that I sent you that's like all of the, I believe Germany's on that. It had all the major economies. It's very depressing for the purposes of the United Kingdom. But Germany had a lot more of a recovery. So how is Germany doing regarding COVID? So they have largely reopened. They were able to exit lockdown a lot sooner than the United Kingdom. So that's one of the key elements there. They are looking at a second surge, just like everyone in Europe is looking at right now. But their second surge is quite a lot smaller. Schools are already back open in Germany and stuff like that. So yeah, you can see that Germany, it did suffer like a kind of larger recession than the United States did. But overall, they are actually doing a lot better than the United States did. As far as what we're looking at as far as purchasing power parity of individuals. So, and they're doing a lot better on COVID. So they actually have, they have universal health care there, or 99.8% of folks are covered under health care. But their system is very similar to the United States. It's just that they only have three different insurers. It's actually what the United States healthcare system was based on. So the Affordable Care Act and like the huge revision was largely based on Germany's system. However, we have only 80% of people covered under healthcare, and a lot of people are kind of undercovered, and we don't have these like out-of-pocket maximums can really explode, and a lot of people have insufficient coverage. The big reason why Germany was so much more effective at it is that they've had it a lot longer, and they had a lot more structural reforms, so they did a lot better cost controls, and they do not means test the state insurance. So you can choose to opt into the state insurance, which would be the equivalent of Medicaid here. You can choose to opt into it as a regular worker and pay into the system. So it's roughly similar to the United States, but it has a lot better healthcare outcomes, like almost everywhere in the developed world. And that is largely because they only have 3 insurers rather than thousands like we do in the United States. And they, despite having a number of different states in Germany, they act functionally as one country in a way that the United States does not, and does not regulate insurance at the state level. So the kitten is very tired. I think she might attack the light soon. It appears she's looking at the light. SK says schools are a big topic right now since the summer holidays are ending bit by bit. SK, you're in Germany, right? Should I do a live stream in German one day? Do you think we could pull? I think I could pull it off. Dean says they are just flat out more organized with a woman in charge, not a blonde mop on top of a balloon. I had a live stream that got a lot of traffic a couple weeks ago because it was like SEO optimized, and I got like a lot more traffic than normal, including after the live stream. And someone said, "You really should leave your biases out of this information." And I was like, people don't come because I'm unbiased. Did she just hiccup? Oh, she's so tired. Yeah, it's a very good pillow, obviously. Who doesn't need a vertical box pillow? Yes. So, SK, would you say that do you feel like the everyday effect of things, are people like more re-employed in your like general circles? I'm always curious to see how it feels from people's perspective on the ground. I know that crazy things went down in Berlin today. So apparently people hate masks there too. Great. And they were holding United States and Russian flags, which is A+. There was a huge protest in Berlin, anti-mask people today, like 10,000 people or something like that. But like kind of also fascists as far as I could tell. I don't know. It didn't sound very good. I mean, and that's coming from an American. Oh. Emily says, "Don't love that energy, Berlin anti-maskers." Yeah, I mean, the thing with protests in Germany is like they don't have the same rights to like protest, and they have censorship and stuff like that. It's a fairly open society, but they're very nervous because, you know, the whole World War II Hitler situation, and because of that, like, you know, the internet is slightly censored, and they don't have the same freedom of speech if you want to support fascists, particularly alt-right and anti-Semitic hate speech and stuff like that. So, SK, my circles are mostly tech and doing just fine, and restaurants are getting busy again. Yeah, I guess that's one of the really key elements, although also scary from a health perspective. Claire says, most of my friends are white collar and fully employed, and all my work friends definitely are, but a few are struggling. I guess this is the advantage of having worked in so many different sectors and like have friends in so many different jobs, is that I don't feel like I have like a very myopic view of what the economy is like. This was a discussion on Twitter last week where people were like, someone was saying that no one they knew had been laid off in the United States. And I was like, who do you know? You don't know a single person that's been laid off? But because I have worked in service industry and fitness industry and know a lot of musicians and stuff from radio, I know a ton of people who have lost their jobs. I also, unfortunately, know a lot of small business owners that are looking at possibly closing their businesses. So, yeah. Whew. There's stricter fuck around and find out laws with regard to fascisms, or why you can tell Twitter you're German and make the experience much less Nazi-y. I never knew you could do that. That's really interesting. Something that is very fascinating, this was before GDPR passed, but Germany has always had these like rights to be forgotten that were like part of were part of GDPR, but that Germany has had them before that. So when I was living there, which was before GDPR, Google Maps Street View was like useless in Germany because anybody can choose to have anything kind of blurred out if they say like, my face was in this, or I don't want my business in this. And that's largely because of the effect of the Stasi, and the fact that everybody could be spied on, even from intimate family members and stuff, by the secret police. And because of that, people are very nervous generally about, like, you know, they want this right to be forgotten. And some of it is a cultural thing, and some of it is, like, left over from Stasi. But I always found that really fascinating, like, how different my internet experience was because of that. Joe says, I don't know anybody who lost their job, but we watched a lot of local businesses really struggle for a couple months of shutdown. Yeah. SK says, on the flip side, I can't report something as just hateful on Germany. on Twitter on Germany because they cover their asses and want me to pick the precise law it breaks. Whoa. That's very fascinating. Oh. I have a US Twitter, but I have like a lot of global block lists. So I use like a couple different services that do global block lists because I used to get a lot of harassment online. And these are essentially like maintained lists where I give them API access to my Twitter and they're able to block accounts on my behalf. So I'm blocking like thousands of people, but it means that it's essentially like a regularly updated list of like alt-right people and fascists and stuff like that and trolls on Twitter, and it blocks on my behalf, and it's very, very helpful for me because, and it's one of the reasons I was able to, I have open DMs again, which is very helpful for journalistic work, but very frustrating from the perspective of someone who was getting harassed on Twitter a lot. And it's only because of those global block lists that I'm able to essentially have open DMs again, because I couldn't have for quite a while. Latitude says, basically all of my former coworkers are out of job and they completely eliminated my job part-timer at the library. Yeah, I'm sorry, that's a bummer. I know you know the folks on the forum that are Ramona on the forums, I believe it's her forum name, and she's a director of a library, and she really struggled with like dealing with the like, should I lay people off when I don't have any work for them to do at the library when they could be making more on unemployment, and like kind of wrestling through all of that. But yeah, I'm really sorry. That's such a bummer. Is there a possibility they're gonna like hire back people at the library now that libraries are doing pickup and stuff like that? I don't know if you're working in a school library and school's open again, but Latitude says, Ramona Quimby, yes! The park that I run in has a Ramona Quimby statue in it, and I live not that far from Beverly Cleary High School. The library that's like really close to me is actually like, this whole neighborhood is where the Ramona Quimby books are based. So like the like stores that are in there and like the streets and stuff like that are all in this neighborhood. It's very fun. All right, we've been at this for a long time now. We've way gone over the hour. Do we want to see what Denmark does and then head out for the week? Oh, I didn't finish Denmark, or I overwrote it. Belgium? Do we want to see Belgium? Belgium or France? Choose Belgium or France. Which do you want to see in the comments? Decide which one you would rather know what they did for COVID and how their economy is doing. France. Ah! All right, I think... Oh my gosh, you guys just keep tying it, don't you? All right, let's go to France because we were discussing French. That seems fair, although it's Belgium, which also speaks French sometimes. All right. So France did very similar things to Germany. They did reimbursement for workers' salaries to companies to keep workers on. And they like upped the amount that they were willing to do that. So they did up to 70% of gross salary or 100% of net salary. And that comes with the tax cancellation and deferral. So the difference between the 70% of gross and net, they do pay relatively high taxes there. However, they did a tax cancellation and deferral for both individual and corporate taxes. So they did a tax holiday where like taxes can be pushed off, but they actually canceled so many taxes that the deferral program way came under estimate for how many people needed to defer because they canceled so many. They also did a kind of direct assistance program, similar to what Germany did. They gave money to small businesses that lost greater than 50% of their income. However, they did not buy shares. As far as I can tell, Germany is the only country that like was buying shares in firms. France did a lot of industry-specific things as well. So I didn't dive through it. They had like very specific things for the automotive industry, the entertainment industry, like everything. It was like very long. And then they did unemployment program extension. This is very interesting. They're one of the only countries that did not raise the amount of unemployment, and instead they just extended it. I think that may largely have to do with the fact that unemployment in France is already quite high compared to other countries. So they just made it possible to have it for a longer number of weeks. This is in comparison to Belgium. We can actually just show Belgium. So the way Belgium did it was that they extended the unemployment program, not in weeks, but they made it so it didn't phase out. So it used to be that it would step down like towards the end to try to encourage you to get off of unemployment. So they increased the amount, unlike France, but they made it so that it stepped down a bit. The other thing that they did is they directly gave money to independent workers. So similar to kind of the way Canada was able to just get money directly to folks, they just straight up said, you're an independent worker, here you get this amount of money. And that amount of money is a lot more than the universal credit in the UK was. So it was kind of more practical there. They also did a tax deferral for individuals and corporations. And similar to the US, they did like a mortgage repayment holiday / deferral, which is one of the things that we did in the CARES Act as well. So Christine said, do you know if any of the countries made a good effort to keep artists paid or employed? I'm part of the sector and it's fucking awful. So I will say that like France did have kind of more programs available to artists that were like specific to the industry. I didn't spend too long diving into them, but I will say they already have a lot of government support for artists in France. It's something that they value, particularly for Francophone artists, because they're trying to preserve the French language because they can't do it by taking over countries anymore, I guess. But the other thing is that they just made it possible for almost anybody to get access to the unemployment program and like expanded that access in the same way which worked out a lot better. And then if artists had like drastically lost income greater than 50% and their annual revenues were less than $1 million, then they qualified for that kind of direct relief program. So the NNLS asked, I might have missed it because I logged on late, but what country do you think handled it best? What I will say is I think it's unfair to use the economy to judge. It's unfair to use economic numbers to judge how countries responded to the pandemic, because it turns out that the makeup of the country's economy is relevant as here as well, and their ability to respond to public health. So if they are able to have lockdown early, they were able to actually have people get into lockdown, then they responded quite well. This is going to sound controversial, but if you go by economic numbers, public health numbers, and economy recover numbers, guess who did the best? China. And one of the reasons China did the best is, one, they have a command economy. The government can kind of do a lot there because communism. The other reason, they did lockdown hard. They did it early. They're able to do that because they have such control over citizens. And last, but certainly not least, is that the private savings rate is so high in China. Personal savings rate in China is over 30%, which, guess what, was the United States personal savings rate when unemployment went up. So we were looking at March, April, and June. The American personal savings rate jumped from 3.5% to almost 30%, which is like the highest it has been since last time we had this amount of economic uncertainty, and that was largely because we were able to put more money into the economy. China also has universal health care, so to speak. There is different feelings about that. If it's universal theoretically, but you have people that can't technically access it in parts of the country because there is no rural healthcare providers. Poof. China, here's the other thing. China lies. So we're not entirely sure if China actually has as low of deaths and everything that they are having. We never really know. when statistics come out of China, right? We never really know when statistics come out of any country, but we have more reason to doubt statistics from China than elsewhere. But we do have journalists and everyone on the ground there in China that do give the impression that life is mostly back to normal in most Chinese cities. They have less deaths overall than the United States is having in a day right now. They had less cases overall than the United States is getting new cases in a day right now, and that was because of early lockdown, their ability to provide support directly to businesses. They did mortgage holidays, but they could only do mortgage holidays in government-owned buildings. The thing is it's China, so they actually do own a lot of government buildings, but they weren't able to like do kind of like a landlord, they weren't able to kind of do like rent and eviction abatement in the same way that we can do it here. However, the government is landlord for a lot of businesses. Remember, the state runs so much of the economy in China. Despite being like a very capitalist society these days, they are capitalist communists. And because it is a command economy, when the state decides to do something for public health or otherwise, they can just do it. You know, they want a new train, they can just build it in a month. And because of that, they have the ability to drive a lot of spending. You also see this in countries like Singapore, where state-run enterprises. So Singapore is very opposite from China in a lot of ways. It has what is considered the most open economy in the world, has a much higher per capita income, but Singapore has a very high percentage of state-owned or state public-private partnership enterprises. And they were largely able to react in a similar way. South Korea has less state-owned enterprises, but they bounced back quickly as well. And guess why they bounced back quickly? Lockdown! They were able to do lockdown a lot easier. They were able to deploy rapid testing. They actually never had like lockdown quite in the same way that like Wuhan did or Italy or like even the United States did. But they had rapid testing and deployment. And the South Korean government, similar to the Chinese government, is pretty regularly monitoring citizens and has ways to interact with citizens. So they don't have these like, for example, people are not scared or so scared that they would automatically just agree to have an alert every time there's a case near them in their neighborhood on their phone. Here, you have to be able to opt into that. Not everybody has the same two phones like they do. I mean, Samsung is a South Korean company, and it is like largely responsible for a huge amount of the economy, and is pretty intertwined with government corporate interests at Samsung, are pretty intertwined with the South Korean government. And so they had like pretty rapid monitoring and testing. You will notice that the countries that recovered quickly had a lot of government control. They also, like government control over the everyday lives of citizens. They have ways to like lock things down or change things, less civil rights, let's say. And then the second thing they had was experience with the SARS outbreak last time. So SARS and MERS were huge problems in South Korea, Singapore, where else? South Korea, Singapore, Thailand, and China. All of these countries did a very good job of containing the virus because they understood how to deploy public health things. Thailand is actually like, for quite a while, was like a golden child as far as the ways that they've contained COVID-19. So their economies have largely recovered, and also life has gone way more back to normal than it is here. Was that a very extremely long answer to your question of who's handled it the best? But Christine says, that is fabulous regarding U.S. savings rate. I mean, it's there's good and bad things about this because we have a consumer-driven economy. And when people are scared and saving a lot, when people are scared, they save money. And one of the reasons that people are saving so much money is there was so much uncertainty. We're living in a constant state of uncertainty, and people don't want to spend money, which is part of the reason that our economy is doing so poorly in the United States, is because consumers don't want to spend money. It also did drop back down once there stopped being freely flowing money in the same way. So Sorry, that was a lot. I just get so excited when I get to talk about the differences in economies. Very exciting. This has been a very long live stream, though. How about you all tell me what you were most excited about this weekend? NNLS said, great answer. I feel like New Zealand did well, but in Australia, we may just hear a lot about them because they are so close. No, I think New Zealand has been held up a lot as well, too. Although I know that they are dealing with a second outbreak, but they're doing a better job of, like, containing it. The thing about New Zealand is that their economy, they didn't do the same kind of social support as a lot of other places. So they're not going to like me saying this, but New Zealand's economy doesn't really matter. It's really tiny. They aren't like a huge global trade partner. They really don't have a lot of people that live there. And so New Zealand is like, their economy is not deeply fascinating. So Emily says, I'm doing more phone banking for a cool candidate tomorrow and about to make ranch dressing to eat with your pizza. I mean, we got to keep it on the food topics here. That is great. Latitude says, how can you say such a thing? Hey, I'm just saying, it is English-speaking, English-speaking, like, Eurocentric, Anglo-centric thinking to think that New Zealand's economy matters more than, say, Botswana or something. Because New Zealand is very small. Sarah says their economy matters to them. Resident Kiwi. Yes, no, it's true. Their economy, it does matter to them. Just like every country's economy matters to them. But it is, it doesn't matter a lot to global trade. It's also like the New Zealand is so it's so isolated in so many ways, and their economy is just so different than a lot of other countries that it's not a very good model as far as like how other countries would necessarily respond, because it's in the middle of nowhere. It's middle of the ocean. Daniel says, I'm taking a week off work. Had made plans early in the year. Plans now shot to hell, but I need the time off. I totally support taking a week off work in the middle of this pandemic, even if you can't actually go anywhere. I did that after I like quit my third job for a week. And I initially was like, is it gonna even be fun to spend like a week at home after I've been in lockdown for like 100 days? And it turns out it was. It still was. It was just nice to not have to worry about work. And also, like, things are a little more open now than they were when I took mine. So you maybe go to the coast or something. I think you're in Portland still, right? Latitude says, I had a pen pal in New Zealand for most of high schools, and I would get letters that are just like, the sheep are wet and smell bad. To be fair, Latitude, that could also be Oregon. I've lived with those sheep. I kind of like the smell of wet sheep. But if they're wet after they also, like, have been in something that doesn't smell good, then it's really bad. Because it's like that wet wool smell combined with whatever the bad smell is. It sounds like whales. Yeah, that could also be whales. I think in New Zealand, maybe the sheep are not wet as much as in Wales, though. Okay, well, this has been delightful. Thank you all. I'm very excited for the phone banking. I apologize comprehensively to all Kiwis for the fact that I said their economy doesn't matter. And apparently New Zealand's economy is dry sheep. I literally live in a place named from the Anglo-Saxon sheep wash town. That's great. When you hear the words wet, smelly sheep, do you get an immediate, like, because I can just smell it immediately. I have like a very tangible smell. Oh yes, Latitude reminded me that Added Up August on the forums ends soon. I will preview and show you all stickers. I believe we are also doing a September challenge. I need to post it. I will show you all what the Added Up August stickers are, because they're pretty cute. They're not super related to adding it up, but they're just cute. So that's, you know, I normally try to keep the stickers like thematic, but it's just not gonna happen. But this is the stickers for Added Up August, which will be shipped out next week, most likely to folks. So they're very cute. They're like a little cat in a plane. I thought we could just, you know, all collectively wish that we could get in planes again. I also, next month is the release of the new Oh My Dollar tea, which includes this pina colada tea, and all of them are coming with this sticker, which is in the vacuum pack, so it won't be as cute. But can we zoom in on it more? Okay. It is a cat with tea, and it is winking at you. So all of the Bourbon and pina colada teas are going to be coming with this sticker, which I'm really excited about. So glad that I made my job getting cat stickers. So it's going to be pretty good. Yeah, that release is coming out next month. So still working out the date. I'd hope to make it September 1st, but I am still working out some logistics. So Perna colada. Oh, that's good. That's pretty good. Anyway, it's going to be delightful. I'm really excited about it. I actually have like 50 pounds of tea over there right now, waiting for the release, but it's going to be fun. And I hope you all have lovely weeks. And if you need to submit your final things for Added Up August, please do that before the end of the month. And you will get stickers. And then we will have a September challenge out soon. It was a delight. Thank you for spending so much time with me today. And thank you for the representation from so many different time zones and the discussion of different languages and economies. And until next week, stay safe, wash your hands, wear a mask, pet a cat if you have one available, drink some water, and I'll see you soon.